Let there be football. Welcome to Moody Chains. I'm your host, Jonathan Bam Rivers. Man, I'm looking up and down this sheet for the NFL playoffs because I've been giving you all my wild card predictions for this weekend. I'm looking at the Rams with Sean McVay, the Panthers with Dave Canales, the Pack with Matt LaFleur, Ben Johnson with the Bears, Liam Cohen with the Jaguars, Kyle Shanahan with the San Francisco 49ers, Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers. So many of these coaches are head coach and play callers. I think this is a trend in the NFL, and this is a lot of the times what people look for. And I'm going to talk to you about why I think it may matter or may not matter when it comes to my full wild card predictions. I'm going to be doing that in my first two segments. Now, my nonsense narrative, this is the season as playoffs approach when it comes to firing coaches. It is what it is. You've seen Mike McDaniel gone. You've seen John Harbaugh get the boot and get the gate. And there are a multitude of coaches, whether it's the Giants, whether it's the Browns, or Kevin Stefanski. But now people want to believe that you got to have this, quick turnaround hire. And I'm going to tell you that's one of the biggest nonsense narratives because it's not about who you're looking for as a head coach. It's about what you're looking for. And last but not least, Championship DNA will have a lot to say about who hoists the Lombardi Trophy in February. All that and more right here on Move the Chains. But you know how we do it. Let's kick it off with the opening toss. All right, so I'm going to take my time, man. When you have a TV show and you have things that you want to talk about, you have to make sure that you hit specific points that I want to do, and that's what I'm here for. So Rams-Panthers is the first game that I want to discuss here in the NFC wildcard race. So the Rams are the 5 seed. The Panthers won the NFC South and they're the 4 seed. So I'll just tell you this. The Rams are a 10.5-point favorite on the road against a division winner that beat them during the regular season. And I think that the spread is not big enough. Because if you go back to that game where they were, I think, week 12, week 13, when the Rams played the Panthers had 40 rushing attempts, the Rams had 21. Bryce Young had the best game of his career, one of the best games of his career, definitely of the season, 75% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and an 84.5 QBR. On the other side of that, Matthew Stafford had easily his worst game of the season, 64% completion percentage, 2 interceptions, and lost a fumble, had a 25.4 QBR. This is not me sitting here telling you that Carolina has no shot. We literally saw them beat the Rams when the Rams had won 6 or 7 games in a row during the regular season, then went to Carolina and stubbed their toe. But Carolina was a big reason for that. Now, the formula for Carolina has to be the formula that was present when they beat LA the first time. I just don't think it's something that's realistic in this scenario because it already happened. And you're not a coach like you are in Sean McVay if you allow what happened to you the previous time you played a team to happen in the same way. Now, if Carolina goes out and scores 21 points on special teams or gets a couple of pick sixes, then it is what it is. I just think the Rams are built differently than Carolina right now. And I'm not getting into the Carolinas a year away or what have you. Carolina's there now. They have the opportunity now. So for people to say, well, they're playing with house money, they don't have anything to lose, they have the same amount to lose that LA does. And that's a chance to get to the divisional round to try to get to the conference championship game and compete for a Super Bowl. You don't know what's going to happen with Carolina. They don't know what Bryce Young's situation is going to be, whether they're going to extend him and call him the franchise quarterback. I really think that you may be looking at a Tua Tagovailoa situation in terms of the decision-making process and the not knowing if he's the guy as of yet. Not that he's the same player, just those type similarities. And the LA Rams play football up front like you can defensively. And like I said, the spread will show itself to not be as big. I'm taking LA on the road in this game. I think they're the better team. I think they have the better coach. And I don't think it's necessarily close in terms of the outcome. Next, Packers-Bears. So a lot of people get excited for division rivalries. And this is a rematch just like the Rams and the Panthers were. But I watched these two teams play one another in a 3-week span towards the end of the season. And as I look at this, the Bears are a top 10 scoring team, and they're a top 10 yards per game team. But they're a top 20 completions per game team. And I think it's all about the identity. I told you this before the season started. I said if Ben Johnson wants to come in and have a very, very high level and positive effect on Caleb Williams, it's because he's becoming a very good head coach, not a very good quarterback coach. And if you look at the numbers, and the numbers don't always tell the whole story, but the numbers indicate what the story is. Caleb Williams has been good this year, but he's been erratic and he's been inconsistent. He's got one of the lowest completion percentages amongst any quarterback that's in the playoffs right now. But they're one of the best rushing teams in the NFL. Now, why do I think this game is going to be what it is? It's because of Chicago, what they've been all year long. They've been beasts and monsters when it comes to turning the ball over. It's who they are. It's their identity. It's not a fluke. I think they're taught to do it. I think they execute it well. But I've watched these two games, and it's been pretty clean on the turnover margin in one game, and Chicago in the last game won the turnover margin by 1 and won it at the end against Malik Willis, who's the backup quarterback, because Jordan Love left the game due to injury. I think Green Bay's multitude of opportunities offensively. You notice I said opportunities, not necessarily weapons, because Matt LaFleur is great when it comes to using motion, as is Ben Johnson. But I think the depth they have at receiver, even though Tucker Kraft has been hurt for a while, they've been able to adapt to that. I do have a concern for Green Bay trying to stop the run. See, this has nothing to do with the loss of Micah Parsons, in my opinion. This takes me back to when Baltimore went into Lambeau at the end of the season and just crushed Green Bay up front. I think that was more of an anomaly than it was actually the rule for Green Bay. I think this game is close. You got division rivals, teams that hate each other, and I love it. I think Green Bay's the better team. And in this type of situation, when you go into the playoffs, I think Green Bay wins because they're the better team, even on the road. Chicago has been very good this season. I just think the way that they have to come back, and a lot of the times it depends on turnovers, won't show itself to be the difference in Chicago against their arch rival. All right? The last game I want to talk about here is the Bills and the Jaguars. So the story about this that I've heard, and this is the narrative that people have put out there, is it's all about Josh Allen and Trevor Lawrence. I get it. They're the quarterbacks. If Josh Allen doesn't win this game, do the Bills make a change at head coach because they're not moving on from Josh Allen? If the Jaguars win this game, what does that mean for Trevor Lawrence? Is he now a top-tier quarterback and all this type of stuff? This is the angle I want to talk about. Shad Khan, the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, was horrendous at his job in terms of owning this. Great as a business owner, right, and a businessman, but terrible as the owner of the Jaguars. But the third time was a charm. Dave Caldwell at GM didn't work. Trent Baalke at GM didn't work. And then you go and get James Gladstone. You probably don't even know who James Gladstone is. He's just the youngest GM in the NFL in his rookie season who actually was mentored by Les Snead, one of the best GMs in football for the Rams. And now you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars team that signed about 19 to 20 unrestricted free agents that went into the draft and got a lot of young talent that's developed and that has played well for them this year. And they brought in a new head coach in Liam Cohen, who's one of the best offensive minds in football because he understands identity. He came in and this team immediately became one of the best rushing teams in the NFL, one of the best rushing defensive teams in the NFL. And because of what has happened to Trevor Lawrence in the past, combined with the experience that has come in as a head coach and a GM, and I mean lack thereof, I mean fresh slate. You had a GM and a head coach that didn't come in thinking they knew everything. They came in saying, we have something to build on, and they allowed a clean canvas to be built, and that's what's happening in Jacksonville. I like Jacksonville to beat Buffalo. And I'm going to continuously hear all the stories about Josh Allen and what he doesn't have in Buffalo, even though he has the best rushing attack. He has a very good offensive line. Defensively in the secondary, they're very stout. But because Buffalo has struggled against the run all year long, I don't see Liam Cohen not doing that. If Liam Cohen didn't have that identity, it would be a good idea to run the football against Buffalo. This is who Liam Cohen is. Check his track record in Tampa Bay when he was the offensive coordinator. And also check the track record of where Tampa Bay is because he is no longer their offensive coordinator. Jacksonville, I think, will be the more physical team. And whether or not Trevor Lawrence plays well, I think this will be a Carson Beck type situation. He doesn't have to be great. You just can't give it away. Jacksonville beats Buffalo at home to move on to the divisional round. We'll be going back from the break in my Chain Gang chat on breaking down the other 3 wild card games this weekend. Back on more Move the Chains right after this. Welcome back to Move the Chains. Before I get into the rest of the NFL wildcard games for the weekend, I want to take this opportunity, as always, to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for hosting Move the Chains. Secondly, to you, the fans, appreciate all the love and the support. I appreciate when people come up to me and just start talking about football out of the blue. It shows that they're a fan of the show, and I truly appreciate you. To the best production crew in the business, the production crew is the reason that this show is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. I just get to talk. They make sure everything from bolts to everything that needs to go down with video, precisely the reason this show is what it is and will become what it will become. And last but not least, you see the QR code at the bottom of the screen. If you need to better your life in your credit life or getting out of debt or getting a living will and a trust and just be better off financially, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, click the QR code, check out the protection plan, and take that next step. Having said all that, you know what time it is. It's time for the Chain Gang Chatter. San Francisco traveling to Philadelphia in a matchup of teams that I'll say one has dealt with mass injuries this year in the 49ers and one has dealt with mass departures in the Eagles in terms of their defense from a Super Bowl winning team a year ago. And I look at this game, man. Do you know that the 49ers are 7-2 on the road? I don't know if I really realized it as I was going through and breaking down these games and doing my research. San Francisco and Kyle Shanahan have done a phenomenal job. And remember, they played a stretch of this season with Mac Jones. I've said this before about how important the backup quarterback is, and I'll say it again. I think that's one of the biggest reasons San Francisco is where they are. And when we talked about the injuries were so prevalent on the defensive side of the football, which is why the reacquisition of Robert Saleh as defensive coordinator meant even more. There's a familiarity with Kyle Shanahan, and he is what I think Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson were to Dan Campbell, another head coach, obviously, on the roster that you don't have to worry about on that staff. But Philadelphia, why are they a team that people just look at as if, oh, this team is overrated. This team doesn't look like they looked to win the Super Bowl last year. I keep telling you guys, stop comparing your team to what they were a year ago because they're competing against teams this year. And I'll just say it this way. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the NFC South 4 straight years before this season. They're no longer NFC South champions. The Buffalo Bills won the AFC East, I think 5 straight seasons before this season. They're no longer division champions. The Kansas City Chiefs won the AFC West 9 straight years before this season. They're no longer AFC West champions. The Philadelphia Eagles are the only repeat divisional champion here in 2025. It means something. And no, they even haven't played up to their ceiling. But with a young defense that dealt with a lot of departures, like I just stated, and injuries, especially to Nakobe Dean, Vic Fangio is a reason why they were able to grow. And now Philly, I think, has one of the best defenses, especially secondaries, in football. Now, can San Francisco run the football? They're going to need to, because in the 3 games that they lost to playoff teams, they didn't rush for more than 83 yards, whether it was a loss to the Jags, the loss to the Texans, or the loss to the Seahawks. And if you're going to beat Philadelphia, this may be the way to do it. But I think Philadelphia, Vic Fangio, will deploy resources to stop the run and trust Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean and everybody in the back end and making plays. I think Philadelphia wins this game at home. And another reason is because Philadelphia is top 5 in hurries with 67 this year. Shout out to my sons. All right? Philly wins this game at home, and they move on to try to defend their championship. All right, Chargers and the Patriots. So I call this game a situational scenario game. This is exactly what it's going to be. Situational scenarios. Whichever head coach, because I think both of these head coaches are high level. Like Mike Vrabel was high level in Tennessee, right? He was. He was a reason, again, he was one of the reasons that Kansas City had to put up a fight and they were able to go to the Super Bowl. But Mike Vrabel was on the cusp with Tennessee, and he's already on the cusp with New England. There's going to be a time in this game where one coach is going to make the mistake, and it's going to be such a big story because these are 2 coaches that don't make mistakes. And it may not even be as big of being called a mistake as in this coach was just better situationally. I'm not even going to focus on the quarterbacks here. Justin Herbert's been backed up. Drake May is in his first playoff game. I think the inability for New England to stop the run in the back half of the season is going to matter because even if Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt didn't get hurt for the Chargers, this is who Jim Harbaugh is. It's who he's always been, whether he was at Stanford, whether he was at Michigan, whether he was at San Francisco with the 49ers. I think the Chargers actually go on the road and beat New England because New England, a lot of people complain about their schedule being soft. A soft NFL schedule to me is an oxymoron. However, I do understand that there are teams that you get the benefit of playing that aren't that good this year. New England took advantage of that opportunity. I think this is a hit-you-in-the-mouth game, and I think the Chargers just hit New England in the mouth a little bit more than the Patriots hit the Chargers in the mouth. Houston, Pittsburgh, culture versus culture. If you're going to ask me who I would say could be Mike Tomlin in the next 15 years, it's DeMeco Ryans. I can see a 17, 18-year head coaching career in Houston with DeMeco Ryans having won a Super Bowl, having gone to 2, and building a team around the defense and solidifying it complementary offensively. That's how I see this game. I actually see it as more of a changing of the guard because I think if Houston wins this game, which I think they will, you could see the Steelers part ways with Mike Tomlin amicably. I think Tomlin may say it's time for a new look as well and go somewhere and do great things. I just don't think people understand how talented DeMeco Ryans is as a head coach, how Nick Caserio and the GM in the front office have done a great job of drafting in this type situation with Houston and bringing in free agent talent like Danielle Hunter. C.J. Stroud wasn't what he was in his rookie season, and that's good because he's more experienced. He's done this 4 times before in terms of being in the playoffs. Houston wins the football game on the road, and the Texans continue as my dark horse to get to a Super Bowl in the AFC. When we come back from the break, teams want quick, higher turnarounds in terms of head coaches. If you look for that, you're probably not going to get the results you want, even though it happens. Back with my favorite segment of the show, right after this. And welcome back in to Move the Chains. And now it's time for my favorite segment of the show. It's time for my nonsense narrative. Run it. So the next man up mentality does mean something because you can't quit. You can be a good team in the NFL, but you also have to be a good organization. Okay? You can be a good organization and be a good team, but you can't be a bad organization and have a good team. So in these coaching hiring cycles that's going on right now, people are going to try to look for the quick turnaround. But what you need to look at is teams that can bring you from being a bad team to a competitive and a stable team. Coaches like a John Harbaugh. If Sean McDermott's no longer in Buffalo, he would be a great candidate elsewhere to stabilize a franchise. Mike Tomlin, a stabilized franchiser. So now you may be looking at what are called bridge coaches. Coaches that may not be there long because they've been in the league already for a good amount of time, but can get you to the next coach that may be able to win you a Super Bowl. I'm not saying these coaches can't. I'm saying these are the best coaches for you to turn around the culture as opposed to just being a team that's now a playoff contender. All right, we'll come back from the break. It'll be the final segment of the show, and championship DNA always matters. Back with the last part of Move the Chains right after this. And welcome back to the show, and now it's time for the final segment of Move the Chains. It's time for the final drive. Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay have won a Super Bowl together. Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts won a Super Bowl together. Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin have won Super Bowls separately, okay? Rodgers actually beat Tomlin in the Super Bowl. So championship DNA matters because when the yuck comes, when the ugly comes, when the situations transpire in these games this weekend and moving forward into the divisional rounds and the conference championship games, there's going to be a time where you're just going to have to make a play or you're just going to have to make a decision. And don't be fooled in thinking that it's going to come out of nowhere. Coaching DNA matters. Player DNA matters. Championship DNA matters, and also does competitive DNA. It will be the difference, mark my words. All right, don't forget, you can not only catch Move the Chains right here on the Sports Leader WXTX Fox 54, you can also catch us on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Go to YouTube. It's at @move_the_chains. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, hit that notification bell for a video notification. Hey, another banger for the best production crew in the business. I'm your boy, Jonathan Bam Rivers. It's Wild Card Weekend. Go enjoy it. Always remember, build every day of your life brick by brick. Check out the QR code for the protection plan and help change your life. And until next time out here on Move the Chains, as always, remember, God bless.